Conservative Voices Silenced. I'm Christine Sposato, and I'm excited to be your guide through the stories that matter. Stories of resilience, strength, and triumph in a world that doesn't always make space for conservative voices.
And I'm Elizabeth Smith, joining Christine in this journey. We know how it feels when your beliefs seem to be drowned out by the noise, but here on this podcast, we're turning up the volume.
That's right, Elizabeth, and we're creating a space where conservative voices can speak their truths, sharing the challenges they've faced and the victories they've celebrated.
Conservative Voices Silenced is not just a podcast, it's a movement that recognizes the diversity within conservatism and gives a platform to those who felt marginalized.
So whether you're a conservative looking for reliable stories or someone curious about the experiences of those with differing viewpoints, you're in the right place.
Get ready for an engaging ride as we dive into the trials and triumphs of conservatives navigating a progressive world. We invite you to join us on this journey of discovery, understanding, and most importantly, amplifying voices that deserve to be heard.
This is Conservative Voices Silenced, where silence ends and the conversation begins. Happy New Year, Elizabeth.
Happy New Year, Christine. It's already here.
I know. And our first guest for the new year is fantastic. We have Nora Cavelli. I've talked to Nora in person. We've corresponded, and we're lucky enough to have her on our show. She just is a wealth of information, and she's one of these wise people that can take a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, a lot of facts, and put it all together in a way that's inspiring and it makes sense. And she's great. So we're going to bring Nora on, and she has been a psychiatric nurse. She's been in the mental health profession. She is an NDRN CNS and has 15 years of inpatient psychiatry experience, 6.5 years in community mental health. So she has seen a lot, and her experience with, just the medical profession and the, I guess, institution of medicine is interesting. And we didn't even get into this. I can't believe it. But she was in law enforcement. She's got just a really cool background. We didn't ask her specifically about that, but you can probably hear it when she's talking, just because she just has a wealth of life experience, and I think you're going to really like her. So let's bring on Nora, and stay tuned. After Nora's done, we have some other great stuff for you. Nora, we're so glad we're here. And you come to us with just a really depth of experience and knowledge. And so I want to jump right in and ask you if you could start out just sharing with us your experience with the COVID situation and the vaccines. And from your perspective, what was your experience with that?
Well, I think several different things happened in sequencing. So December of 2019, early in 2020, I remember my mother telling me about my grandmother who was present in the pandemic of 2019 or 2018.
Wow.
And so, or 1918 rather. So that was the last four digits of my pager at University Hospital, right, because I needed one I could remember. So that was how it told me, well, you can reach me on, 2/6/1918, which by the way was the grand pandemic. So we became friends, early in my career. But having had that family history firsthand, by reliable witness, my mother, this whole thing struck me immediately as being weird. And I began to think, well, if we had publicized the annual deaths and, ailments for every year for the last 10 years, would we be equally terrified? And I started looking. So it wasn't that much more severe, the widespreadness of it. A lot of those data were removed after a while. I guess I wasn't the only one that, thought it'd be obvious. So, but what was so very interesting was the absolute godsend. I mean, it must have been a spiritual event. All of the radio stations and news media were saying the same thing. Well, when have you ever known them? Well, okay. So I was, I wasn't sold. I lived through Y2K. I bought the Y2K food stuff. Wasn't going to do that again. Okay. Our computers did not fail in 2000. So, and my brother-in-law knew that all along. So I had weathered something anyway. But it was a fear. It was an existential, oh my gosh, you're going to die, and almost up at the level of, oh my gosh, Biden's going to get elected, or oh my gosh, Trump's going to get elected. Is it just this frenzy? And so watching people be terrified was terrifying. And it was weird. For a while, I was working in a building where no one else was working, and I still had to check in and take my own temperature and record it on an attendance log to make sure I wasn't infecting anybody,
Crazy stuff. Yeah.
I think our end of it, though, was it soon became a test of membership, that you were actually not allowed, even in your own churches. And if you didn't go to church, you no longer had to make a mistake. I mean, a reason for not going. You had a good one, but it was just so eerie. But the other things that came along with that, not only the vaccines and the mandates, but the other things that came along with that was in March of 2020, the Community Mental Health Center where I was employed, the chief officers, vice presidents, and board sent out an email to all the employees, and I'm sure a similar letter to all of their community partners, as they were called, and said that, and I expected this to be about COVID, and it said, well, we're wholly endorsing Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ race, I mean, all of that stuff. And they were putting committees in place to implement all of these things to make sure that we were supporting them. And our staff was fairly well got along. So, and maybe I'm just, naive and stupid and never noticed, people fighting in the break room or something, but I never saw that. So when they said that, I realized that, well, first of all, it was a personal concern. I mean, I've never had to worry about pronouns. There have been a few times in my life where I had to say, is that 13-year-old? I'm just not sure, but I mean, and yeah. So anyway, but to have to mandate that, people's email signatures began to read their name, their gender, their orientation, and their pronouns. Then it started being done when the professionals were signing off on their medical legal documents, the patient notes and things. So I thought, I was figuring maybe I'll be clever enough to hide. Maybe I just won't put my foot in my mouth. Maybe I can just manage. I've never been able to, but hope springs eternal. But I was nervous. I was really nervous. This was a whole new social phenomena. And underneath it, I resented the heck out of it because I didn't want to. I didn't want to have to do that. And then it hit me in another way. How can I, as a nurse, look at an absolutely objective fact? There has never been any doubt that you're male or female. It's a biological fact. The Bible says so too. He created them male and female. I mean, okay, the monkeys and the giraffes and us, all of it, So I thought, wait a minute. So what kind of a fantasy am I participating in here? This is a social. We were talking about what a social contagion. Well, I am pretty well vaccinated against that just by age, right? So I began to think, how can I really authentically engage with? Yeah. So historically, if you go back to 1992, that was before most of you were born. Okay. There was a follow-up. There was a follow-up case in the U.S. Supreme Court, and Justice Kennedy and some of the others said, "We determine." This is a bad quotation, but liberty means that an individual has the right to determine for himself life, the meaning of life, all of that stuff. And I thought, no human being has that authority. It's evident, but you don't just choose it. And so this is a mammoth, huge departure from reality. It's unprecedented. I can't think of a single brain in history, a renowned thinker that would influence today if they were still around, that wouldn't laugh, face value. Oh, that's ridiculous. So how do I do that? So I call it recreationally employed. I was, employed as a psychiatric nurse, the way substitute teachers are, that way. So I didn't have any real existential crisis. I mean, I like my job. I'm much better at remembering what day of the week it is if I have a Monday, where I show up, right? But I thought, okay, is this little compromise? I mean, all it means is you just wear a mask and you put some pronouns after your name. And I thought, well, I think it is. I think it is that serious. Because you cannot live without truth. Now, I mean, I'm not talking just big truth. I mean, like, existential truth. We have to have that. It doesn't mean we're right, but we have to have something standard and transcendent by which to measure everything else. So I prayed, and God was unusually silent. I usually do most of the talking, but, and I thought, okay, this is a test. This is a test. So do I make this minuscule, it won't hurt anything, compromise? And I thought, no, the first compromise is a sellout. But I didn't have kids in college and, a mortgage. I mean, I was pretty well, no one else was really depending on my income except me. But anyway, so I left and I didn't make waves about it. I just thought, no, it's already so contested. This will just be turned in the wrong way and I won't be there. And I don't want somebody else representing my ideas. So I just sort of slithered like a roach out the door. But it concerns me because I've seen in the sequelae of that, people who had to go through jump hoops to get religious conscience not to take the vaccines. And how do you apply to HR not to make pronoun errors?
Right.
So it's, and I think, Christine, when you and I spoke in the fall, I think, I'm pretty candid, even in public dinners, that underneath this, and I said it was a religious war, but I think that's a provocative phrase. I think it's an ideological war in that you have theism, that there is a transcendent truth, and there's relativism or existentialism that just says, you be you and I be me, and everything's all relative. And but I don't think we live that way. I don't think we can live that way. We have contested ideas about the effectiveness and the safety about vaccines, but we're getting scientific reports that are telling us things after the fact. And we've progressed as a culture because we have an idea of truth. We all disagree about it, and we have the freedom of speech to just go to blazes against each other. But we have this idea of truth, and we have this idea of objective data, evidence, in our courts of law, in our scientific process. I mean, just look at consumers' research, for Pete's sakes. So how do we as a culture, how do we as an individual in that culture live without truth? And you cannot. It cannot be done. There's no trust. There's no intimacy. There's all of the things that make life rich. Spring back to that one idea. So I figured, okay, I'm just me. I'm going to sliver out the door, and watch. But I don't know how we can survive this. But, depending on what your news source is, and they're all there to make money. So they're all equally inclined to be, biased by that. But,
right.
Are we going to get a cultural consensus? Are we even going to be able to be heard? So all of those things rattle through. But this idea that in 1992, the Supreme Court of the United States, in an abortion issue, said, it is a fundamental human right to define your own sense of reality, person, meaning, and the meaning of life. That is an astounding thing to say. And it's an astoundingly dangerous and evil thing to say. Because if we're all bosses, we can fire everybody. And we've been doing that since the summer of 2020. So that's the long version of my short diatribe.
Yes. It's a great version, Nora. Just I had a conversation with a close relative, I don't know, maybe a year ago, and he's a writer. He was an English major in college. He writes for a profession, and we were having this conversation about truth in reporting and truth in the news. And he admitted that, there's bias, but he said, I just go by the Associated Press because AP is as unbiased as can be. And at the time, I didn't have any facts to back up my theory that they're as biased as everyone else. And they have uncovered that they have been taking money from these organizations that are all about climate change. And so the stuff that they're reporting, the pieces that they're putting out, and they're putting out on the wire, are all about supporting the theory of climate change. And because the Associated Press is taking millions of dollars from these special interest groups. And so I thought, small victory for me. Yeah, there's my proof right there. But you're right. I'm just baffled every day that we don't have a common truth anymore. Something as fundamental as gender. Are you a boy or a girl? What's the first thing that you What do you say to somebody who says, oh, I just had a baby? What's the first thing people ask? Is it a boy or a girl? Or maybe, is it healthy? Is everything okay? And then the next thing is it a boy or a girl? And, that's in the first 2 chapters of Genesis. You're right. It's right there in the Bible. It is front and center, number one, foundational to who we are as living beings. And so if that truth is out the window, good grief, everything is out now for debate, which, goes back to your other point, which was fantastic.
Well, I have a Southern gentleman who was a very wonderful man, and he once was greatly shamed by a woman whose child he mistook for the wrong gender or the wrong sex. And so that cured this man of grand gallantry and manners. And he said, now when I see a baby, I just say, my, what a baby. So, maybe that's an option. My, that's a thing. There's real harm being done. Yeah, there's real harm being done because, we all go through that stage. You don't like your hair. You don't like your eyes. You don't like, all of that. Don't like your name. There's a name for my grandmother. It's a 4-letter word. I mean, it's been very convenient. I've never bucked that. But, and that is normal sort of distress. I mean, who would volunteer to be 15 again? Anybody? No. So,
No.
I'd rather be my own age than be 15. I really would. That's just, much better. But so we're contributing a tremendous chaos here, and it's a terrifying thing. But it's a cultural thing, and I wonder sometimes, are we as outnumbered as we're led to believe? And
I think it's shifting.
Who will have courage to do something. And you look at the people that did have the guts to stand up. I didn't. I kind of slipped out the door. I mean, I'm a substitute, so I didn't want to kick up dust. But truck drivers, it's the people who actually work for a living. I mean, no offense to you or me, but I mean, they actually work for a living. So maybe that common sense is what we need, and this country has always been strong in that. But it's a test of reality.
It is. And, really the terrifying thing is that, we listen to Fauci get up and say, I am science. I am science. I am body science. And
I wanted Adam Sandler to say that so we could laugh, I mean.
And he, of course, lie after lie after lie. And, your experience in the medical field, also they were following those those mandates and the lead that was offered by our government. And what's going to happen to patients, if the government continues to embed itself in medicine, and b, if they lose trust in the medical field, and then where are we going to be? It seems like that's a pickle.
Well, and it's a difficult one to comment on if you're not the investigator general office, because they do audit these things. But you know, and I was not involved in the emergency room or the critical care room, during this time. But we saw something that was amazing. We did Social Security in we enacted Medicare I'm sorry, Social Security in 1935, Medicare in 1965, and then Medicaid. So with Obamacare, we in fact made every independent physician and practitioner, speech pathologist, all of them. Anyway, so we have basically turned our medical professionals into government employees. And we saw that. If there was a financial incentive to put people on ventilators, well, we're going to provide ventilators, And I don't know the medicine, all of that, but the incentives are grueling. And even if it weren't intentional, or even if it were, it may not be, but look at what happens.
Yeah. Yep.
So we have this whole thing of us being told that ivermectin was paste for farm animals, and it turns out it's been used successfully across Africa and a lot of places very, very well. It's a very safe, very cheap. Can't make any money off of it, but it's pretty good stuff because it's not actually given from a tube. It's actually made for a pill for human beings, but details. So it's a grave thing that we've just seen. And I think if you read, over the years I've read 3 biographies, two autobiographies and 1 biography of the Mao Zedong time in China, and Armando Vallardes in Cuba, and of course the ever famous Solzhenitsyn. And these books document much more violent versions of the same thing that we've seen here in terms of public canceling and all of that sort of thing. It's been virulent, but not quite the same. The summer of 2020 was not all that different from things that happened in the 60s out in Los Angeles. We've had that before, but there's definitely a historic precedence there. And I would say one test of truth is history, and there's no history can be very exciting, and it can be very boring, but a biography or autobiography is, I think, a good one. And I think Life and Death in China, Nanjing, Solzhenitsyn, Armando Vallardes, Against All Hope. Those are exciting to read. The personal accounts, they're every bit as compelling as something, say, by Bonhoeffer, who's gotten a lot of attention in the last few years from Eric Metaxas. But the biography is a great history, and I would encourage people with that. It's a convincing voice. Solzhenitsyn, Joseph Piercy, who wrote his biography, and Solzhenitsyn was a real picky guy. He's a prickly guy, and he said "nyet" to everybody, but he liked Joseph Piercy, so he let him write his biography. And in the early part of the book, and this is brilliant, what Piercy wrote. He said Solzhenitsyn in his youth, when he was just in the army, had talked to a man that would be the age of his grandfather. And this grandfatherly gentleman that mentored him kept talking to him about risen, Christianity. And, he just said, no, like most of us do when we're that age, right? And so in his later life, he reflects that when he spoke with this grandfatherly man, that his responses were Pavlovian. You ring the bell and you feed the rat, and then you ring the bell and you don't feed the rat, and the response is the same. And I thought that Solzhenitsyn, and for Percy to pick it up, and I think now so many of the things that I hear, it's climate change, right? Kind of Pavlovian.
It's
the Green Movement replaced the Red Movement in Germany during the Cold War. The Meider Bainhof gang, the Red Brigade, those people, movies have been made of it. Well, they went so violent, they lost their core. Well, even terrorist groups have to have a following. So the Baader Meinhof, the Red Brigade, all those brains, they figured out, okay, we're going to be green, and that's where the environmental movement came from, and that's history. And I saw it. I mean, it's there. It's an amazing thing to see how that's grown. So there's a broad range of things going on, but I think they all relate to the central issue, Christine, that you had inquired about, is that we could say we have a republic versus a tyranny. And when you look at our founding fathers and all of that process, I would say that the United States of America is a Christian country. And it's not because there's a majority of people who are Christians, because they're not. I mean, we're told they're not. Who knows? If each of us count for two, we might have a fighting chance. But
right.
But it's a Christian country because our documents of a republic, they didn't want a democracy. They didn't want mob rule. We've seen what happens with that. And that's why we need the electoral college. But it is a Christian anthropology. It is a Christian version of human nature. And we see that in the division of powers. We need people to tattletale on each other and create some pretty vicious accountability within house if we have to. And we've kind of veered towards a one-party nation. But I think, and that's why I've changed the verbiage from a religious war to a cultural war to an ideological war.
Yes.
Are we human beings with conscience and eternality that can comprehend transcendence and can comprehend sacrifice for the sake of that higher good? And can we keep a watch on each other? And if we can do that. But all of the founding fathers said, well, we're not too sure how long this is going to last. So.
Well, and I think you're right that our checks and balances seem to be just fading over time. So it's
it's kind of like, check, you got this, check, I got that, balance. Yes.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And in my mind, I see it, kind of like dropping the frog in the hot water and then turning up the heat. Because if someone would have just come in and said, all right, we're going to eliminate checks and balances in our government, people would have freaked out. But it's just been happening slowly over time, little by little. The lines are so blurred now, and everyone is playing the same game. And so what you were describing,
hand in the pot. Yeah.
Right. And what you're describing that the founding fathers envisioned now has, it has faded into some other corrupted version of their ideal.
You stay too long and pretty soon, you're on the other payroll, yeah.
It is true. So do you want to talk a little bit more about, the Constitution, socialism, your view of where we're going?
I think that most of us are worried about that. I mean, we've seen this in history. You get prosperous, you get greedy, you go down. This is very simplified. I couldn't publish; it was too short.
It's a great soundbite, though.
Yeah, it is a great soundbite. I'm not even sure it's mine, but it's. But I bet too. So that's. So it's hard to say with any certainty. The future is. We don't have data on it yet. But we do have history. My vision is very short-sighted because I get upset when I'm inconvenienced, much less being oppressed or put in a concentration camp. Or Greta Van Susteren is doing a historic thing, and actually, I had never seen the larger concentration camp from the one in Auschwitz. I'd always thought Auschwitz was, no, it was small compared to the big ones that they had. I mean, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, I've read about that from him, some others. But are we heading for that? You have two directions. You have Godward and otherwise. And I don't know that human beings can save themselves, but I do think there's a transcendent power there. I call him God.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Jesus works fine for me. But you
Right.
can abstract that too, if you're uncomfortable with getting personal. But you're not your own authority. You are not your own law. Your autonomy in its fundamental form is a complete denial of God or anything transcendent. Well, then you're going to kill yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
won't need somebody to do that for you. So I don't know. I don't know, but I am concerned. And the thing of it is, and just look at it in the short term. People say to me, well, "I'm going to move out of wherever it is," right? Well, you're one governor election away from getting the same thing where you just moved. I mean,
That's right.
we can't run, and the government owns most of the forest. So even those hardy, Schwarzenegger types, who, really don't have any place to go. So, what do you do? What do you do? We can worry
Mm-hmm.
and keep on about our business, but I don't know. I really don't. And how soon? Who knows? We are not given the Cliff's Notes on God's plans, except the Bible.
No.
And we don't know what's going to happen, but we know what our response needs to be. And it terrifies me at times. But I'm not without hope.
Well, just in my lifetime, I have seen society change from community focus, and people would, sacrifice their own time and their own personal well-being, let's just say, for the community good, regardless of what that is. And in my lifetime, I have seen that shift to now everyone is so individualistic to an extent that it is just shocking that people don't believe that they have an obligation to show up for community or for other people or for society in general. And we've become so egocentric. And I even look in the mirror myself and see ways and things that and attitudes that I have now, embraced and embody that are exactly that. And I'll stop and think, holy cow.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? And it's, that's what culture is. Culture is the things that we don't think about. It's the things we don't talk about. It's the things that we just absorb and accept subconsciously. And then that becomes our baseline and our standards for, behavior, for values, for how we view the world. And so, but I certainly admit that I am a part of that, and I have to consciously check myself all the time, because we really have gotten to a place where it's me first. If I'm not happy, then what am I going to do about that if I'm not happy for this 5 minutes? And
Well,
we've
and
just
I
have
don't even think
lost.
I love to insult people with whom I disagree, and but I try not to. And so saying that we're just too selfish to do that, I don't necessarily want to bring everybody down, but I think your observation is true, and I think people feel it that we're busy working, but we're not connected. Uh, and I think that it's because we don't need each other. I was over at a hospital waiting for someone to get good news, hopefully on heart surgery, and got the good news and so forth. And I looked, to make your point, Christine. I looked at the waiting room, and there were 3 different surgeries that I heard other people getting. I mean, I didn't get the details, but you could tell. So there's not. It was not the pre-Christmas sale on heart surgery this morning at the hospital, but
Right.
But who was there? There were 2 women, and each of them had husbands waiting there, and 2 of them had friends there, and then another one I was a friend.
Mhm.
And that's just an example. Who's in the waiting room?
Yeah. Yes. It's a great example.
So I think you're right about that. But coming from the working world, boy, it swallowed me whole and spit out the bones, and I was expected to reconstitute, over the weekend.
Mhm.
And even if I had that discretionary time, there wasn't much left of me to socialize. So
Right.
it's a consuming work is consuming, and consuming the culture is consuming, and we're consumed.
Right.
So, because I
Well,
think a lot of it is people don't have time. I sometimes take Uber. In fact, that's where I go places when I'm traveling. And almost to a
mhm.
person, it's a man or a woman who's come here from another country. And if they're open to
Yeah.
talking, I ask them, how did you get here? How's your family? What do you do for fun? And
Yeah.
they play soccer on Sundays.
Mhm.
They bring that here from the country of origin.
Yeah.
If I tried to play soccer, probably be a medical emergency. But anyway, but you see what I mean? Uh,
Mhm.
it's a different. They bring their culture, and that's what their culture still does.
Yeah.
And so, I think the slogan, turn off your phone and drive, probably could suit the rest of us, all the rest of the things we do as well. But it's a good thing. So how do we get that back? I think we promote the things that are good and true and wholesome, and communicate, connect with other people. And
Well,
some
Elizabeth
churches
is
do that.
from
Some things.
a different generation. She
No
has
kidding.
children
I
at home.
I do.
And so what's the perspective you have, Elizabeth?
Well, personally, from having my kids in public school right now, I can see all of the things that are affecting them from when they were pulled out of school for the COVID mandates and all that, all the closings. And then my oldest was the only one in school at that time. It was his kindergarten year. And they pulled him at the end of his kindergarten year. And when they sent them back the following year, they only went 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And they split their classes. So there was a morning class for 3 hours and an afternoon class for 3 hours. So you would pick which one you wanted your child to go to. And they were still masking at that point. And then when they finally returned to normal, these kids were so far behind, and they had been masked for so long that their verbal communication and everything was just so far behind that they're still trying to catch up to all of that loss. And I believe a lot of it is when money's involved and they go after the children, everybody suffers, but the kids suffer the worst. And with all of everything going on with the surgeries and things on minors, it's just the mental illness. Instead of taking care of the mental illness that these people are going through, we're glorifying it. We're saying, you think you're a man when you're really a woman. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's give you your space and let you get what you need to fulfill that fantasy, instead of saying, okay, you need help, and we're going to get you the help that you need. And I mean, we don't, as of right now, we don't have an issue. I can send my kids into a public restroom and I don't worry about it. I have 2 older boys and a younger daughter, and I will send the boys in there. The first thing I ask them before they go in the bathroom is, I said, what are the rules? And they know the rule is, if somebody tries to touch them, they're allowed to knee them in the you know what. And I ask them that every time they go in there. And I can't believe that I have to do that. And it's even more so now than if my children were younger or if it was a different time. And I don't let my daughter go in alone at all. Never is she allowed to go in the bathroom alone. So
Mhm.
it's very overwhelming. But I've spoken at school board meetings, I've run for the school board, trying to change things, to make sure none of that stuff gets into our school. But it's exhausting. And you have a lot of people that just say, it's not going to happen here, or it's fine,
Oh,
it's
it's
going to
already
be
happening
over.
there.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And they still sit there and they say, well, there are going to be bigger battles in our future, so we'll just sit this one out. Well, this is a big battle, and it's very hard to keep going.
I just heard an interview with a medical doctor who said that 20 years ago, 15 years ago, uh, girls that had, emotional challenges were anorexic or bulimic, or maybe were cutting. And he said, the medical profession never endorsed that. We never said, great, keep throwing up or keep starving yourself. And he said, these same kids, that same profile emotionally, are the kids now that are doing the transitioning. And he said that it is so unprofessional, so immoral that the medical profession is endorsing these kids with these emotional challenges as adolescents, that they're harming themselves in the same way that they did 15 or 20 years ago, but the medical profession would intervene and say, you need some help and we're going to support you to live a healthy life.
And one of the other elements in that was that there were internet groups, and somehow you find out about them. But we found that with that cutting and so forth, that they get together on these internet sites, so forth, and talk to each other about. So it went from did you see the poodle skirt at Penny's over to did you have the I mean, it's the same kind of phenomena, but so much more serious. But so it's one of those other things too, is the unsupervised, or just this accessibility of everything in the world. My goodness. And a sense of real camaraderie and belonging, as deep or as shallow as it may be, in these groups, and particularly for teenagers. And
great point.
You could have a busy social calendar as a teenager and still feel alone. So that's a very normal thing to go through. But
right.
Yeah. And so when I finally found out how long the surgeries and so forth has been going on, it's been 15, 20 years. That's crazy. It was not publicized. Let me put it that way.
Are you able to talk about any of those shifts or trends that you saw in your work professionally?
One of the best trackers of that for me was bioethics. The teaching hospital where I worked had a bioethics committee and a thing, but Trinity International University also has a bioethics master's track and sponsors an annual conference. And this has been going on since the year 2002. I think it was one of the early ones. And I've gone off, and it was at that time, the early 2000s, when they were even talking about how much protection of conscience is there. And we saw that with the vaccines. Well, you have the right to protection of conscience. Well, no, I worked in a hospital for a while that said, the flu vaccine is voluntary, but you have to have it to work here. What? And that was just plain old flu. I mean, so bioethics has been one of the easiest ways, and some of them track the worldviews of the residents coming through. And just like the rest of the culture, it pretty much is gone from medicine. So you're talking about physicians who go into training and the residents and so forth, at one time could say opt out of performing abortions. So you see that slide, but because it's within the professional world, it's not something the general public necessarily is aware of or would need to know necessarily. But the whole country has been shifting from absolutes to relativity. So it's and a much more utilitarian idea of what can be done for people. One of the ethics issues early on was, is it ethical to provide cosmetic surgery for enhancement rather than just for correction or health? So the difference between somebody losing their face in a battle and somebody else just wanting to be 5 years younger to look good. I mean, how do you deal with that? So but again, these ethical issues are influenced by the profitability of them.
Absolutely.
And so pretty soon it's not as horrifying anymore. And we all do that. I mean, we all have a certain amount of slide, if you want to call it that.
We do.
So, I never wanted to own phone, and you can't live without one. So, and I'm, if I play one more game of solitaire, I think I'm going to have to walk in the park. It's going to be bad. So,
Well,
so
and
there you have it.
I am on a quest to be vigilant about my own ethics and my own morals. So
Yeah.
I am not part of the slide because I know I am. I'm not immune to what's going on. And I wish I had a moral compass that didn't shift.
Well, you
But
do.
it does.
You just
So
have to
I
believe
am
it.
just
North is still north. Because I just want to assure you, north is still north. Even on my iPhone, north is still north.
but I think that people
Yeah.
we have so much influence going on around us 24 hours a day that I think we have to be more vigilant than ever before. I don't think my grandmothers, when they were out, milking cows and, digging potatoes in the garden, had as much um oh corruption of character that they were subjected to. And so I think
Probably is, you can say
I
a
have
lot for
to
feminists.
amp it up. I know.
Yeah.
I know. I feel
The
like I
corruption
have to,
is not, yeah, but I see what you're saying. But we're all corruptible. And so that vigilance is a good foundation, too. Yeah.
right. And I think if I was, if I chose to just be kind of lazy and not pay attention to it, I think that it's so easy to just, slide into that pool of just accepting everything that's going on and saying, oh, I'm okay. So whatever. Okay, that I guess I'm on a tangent. I'll cut it off now.
Well, I think there's one real thing there, too. I was reading a book review of Abigail Schreier's book, and the person that wrote the review, and I can't, I don't remember. I don't remember my next door neighbor, which was a publicist. But anyway, it was just saying uh, a lot of what's going on with our young people is what the parents allow, and what the parents even think they can allow. And so when you start counting generations, it's it started here in the educational system in the 1850s. Woodrow Wilson was our first progressive president.
That there was an agenda in the educational system.
Yeah. So this isn't this is a long has a long tail.
Right.
But the world still exists, and we've gone through other things. So there's not we haven't lost hope. I have no idea what the hope is, but it's here somewhere, along with my socks that never made it, and other those other things that seem to slip through. But it's here somewhere.
Right.
And so anyway.
Well, I think that's part of the slide, is that with the kids, teenagers especially, are already in that awkward phase, and it's so very easy for them to just want to fit in and want to be accepted that they'll do whatever everybody else is doing to do that. And the worst part about it now is there are parents that are encouraging that for their children, instead of saying life is awkward, it's going to be that way, you'll be fine. Make your group of friends small enough to where you can trust who's there, that you don't have to have 100 friends. Have a couple friends that are close friends. I had a couple best friends, and that was it. And these kids are just, and then you have the TikTok thrown in there where they see something stupid being done on there, and their friends are doing it, and everybody in the school is doing it. So now they are, and then their kids have died from that stuff. And it's like, parents, you have a responsibility too, to not have your kid on that stuff, or to ensure that they're not following along with all of that stuff. And it's the whole slide. These kids, and that's why they're going after the kids so hard, because they're vulnerable and they know that. It's just sad.
Well,
it breaks my heart.
Everything keeps changing, but it's still the same. The other day, a couple days ago, I was listening to Cat Stevens, and the father and son song, And I started just, weeping. And what a timeless song that every, coming of age teenager, young adult has that struggle and challenge of needing to break away. And, now I'm on the other side of it. I'm the old person in the song. Now I see it from that perspective of, I really do know better than you. You think you know yourself, but guess what? I've been around a while. And, but kids now, it's the same as we were, in the 60s and 70s. And Cat Stevens, bless his heart, he nailed it, man. He nailed it.
Well, you need to go get a tie-dye and a guitar and do your part.
And he was cute.
And he was cute, yeah.
Oh, gosh, he was cute. Cat, if you ever hear this podcast, you are so cute. Anyway, well, we are about at the end of our time. Anything else, Nora, that you still have processing that you want to share with us before we close?
No, I've got probably, a 25-minute brain.
I know. Well, your 25-minute brain has been packed, and it's been a great contribution. And you are, smart and insightful, and you synthesize things in ways that are so engaging, and it's so important. So thank you so much for being here and talking us through all of these things. I really appreciate it very much.
Thank you for your interest. It's been delightful to meet you, and you, Elizabeth. And
thank you. You as well.
Carry on with what you're doing, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
So we're recording because I'm getting used to my computer and I'm hitting buttons at random, and the pad on there is huge and I'm not used to that.
Yeah.
And I'm hitting buttons and I'm moving tabs around, and so we're starting early.
All right. Okay.
So, Nora is absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait for people to see this interview with her.
Mm-hmm. She's really impressive. I love people who are really well read, because unfortunately, I don't feel like at this point in my life, I really am. So I love having the opportunity to learn from other people.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Yeah, I'm definitely, and I'll tell people, I'm not book smart. I have trouble sitting and concentrating on something. So it's hard for me to find a book that I can get into. But I got into your book, and I got into Adam B. Coleman's book. They are both amazing. So
great. That is fantastic. If anybody else wants to get into my book, Student Voices Silenced, you can get it on Amazon. And the book highlights the bias against conservative students in higher education. And it was before it was even cool to talk about indoctrination when I was writing it. And now that is really associated with higher education. And so just in this last year, it has become a topic of common conversations. So read the book, man.
Yeah, do it.
Today, to like it.
Tomorrow. Amazon Prime. Come on.
Yeah, get it. So yeah, Nora was great. And, I like that she has this perspective that she can bring in politics and religion and culture. There are so many things that she could talk about, but what was striking me while she was talking about that, we are a Christian country and we are a Christian culture. Although that's when she was saying that, I could kind of feel this sort of visceral reaction, because we're not supposed to say that anymore. That's part of our politically correct indoctrination, is that we're not supposed to say that anymore. And we're not supposed to talk about, the Bible is the foundation of our world and life itself.
Right.
So that was something that I kind of went, what? But she's right. Yeah. And I think that her life experience is great. And, everybody will express where they come from. And because she's done a lot of things and had a lot of experiences, I really love that she brings all that to the table very unapologetically.
Yes. And we need more of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, she it was subtle, but she had a call to action. I think she was calling everyone, all of our listeners, to not sit back and be passive, but we all need to speak up when we see that something is wrong or something doesn't fit with our values. And we don't need to succumb to the pressures of our profession or our community or what the latest trend is. That maybe we all have a responsibility to use our voice and to speak up and tell our truth and to reestablish what truth is, because right now it's so wishy-washy.
Right. And don't be afraid that your friends and family are going to stop talking to you, because that is their choice to do. You tell your truth, you say what's going on and that this is unacceptable. And if they disagree with you, and I've had people come at me, call me everything under the sun, and then they blocked me, unfriended me, family, friends, people I've known for almost all my life, and I'm 40, and they're no longer in my life. And that's not on me.
Right.
I didn't make that decision. They did. And that's the one that they have to live with. That's not on you. That's not on your conscience. So keep talking, keep sharing this stuff, and let them make the decisions that they want to.
And I've had the experience of, I have friends and relatives who pretty much agree with my perspective on what's happening in the world. And of course, those people are great to talk to. It's very reinforcing to hear your own voice echoed back to you or your own
Right.
perspective. But I also have people in my life who don't agree, but who haven't backed away and who haven't just, checked the box of like, not anymore, not my friend or relative or and I have so much respect for those people. Almost, I shouldn't say more respect than the people who agree with me, but those people who stay in the arena and are willing to continue to have conversations and continue to support, me as a human being with all of the other stuff aside, are such marvelous people. I value them so much because that takes a lot to stay in the relationship, to stay in the conversation. And it's, a little bit, everybody has to make their own decisions. Like you said, everybody has to take care of themselves, but it takes a lot of courage and a lot of commitment to stay in it.
Right. Yep. I'm sure there's more people than I think that have voiced against me that maybe are even listening to these podcasts and thinking, okay, they do make good points. I'm still where I'm going to stay, but they do make good points. And that's, listening to opposite of what you believe in and what you feel. That's part of what America is. We can be at odds. We can disagree on most things or everything, and we can still be adults. We can still be friends, family. And there's the pressures now to not. It makes me worried for my kids. Like, you can't have a disagreement without being called a name or worse. And that's just not how it's meant to be. So we do definitely need to learn that in society again. I'm pretty sure that's a meme that goes around, and I share it every time.
Well, I just listened to a interview with someone who came at pretty much every, current event, every topic from the other point of view. And I really learned so much from listening to him because I could see things through his lens. He was an excellent communicator and, very engaging person. But I learned so much from him. And, I really stepped back for a couple days and thought, when I would have these, I'd hear something on TV or something, and I'd think, have my automatic thought, I was able to step back. For example, he was talking about what's going on in Israel, and he came at it with a different point of view, and it wasn't, radical, in your face. I support the Palestinians that we're kind of bombarded with. He came at it with a lot of history and a lot of culture and a whole different. He painted a different picture that I really had a lot of respect for. And so I think the more we can listen, and the more people that we can listen to, that are willing to take the time to communicate, and not just, and for me as well, to not just bark out my opinions, but to speak thoughtfully and intelligently, and not even trying to persuade anyone, not persuasively, but just conversationally and respectfully. Man, we'd be so much more better off, I think.
Oh, yeah. We definitely would be.
Yeah. Yeah. He even made a case against capitalism. And I was listening to it going, oh, I can see that point. Okay, I get that. Yeah, I can see that too. So for all of us, what a great lesson that listening, what a concept. Listening.
Right. Yeah.
Holy cow, we can learn a lot.
Listen without reacting. That's what a lot of people need to learn how to do. We've definitely lost that.
Yes. Yep. Yes, we have. Well, I've been working on my app. I have a mobile app for conservative college students. And my app is a series of lessons, but they're all videotaped and they're recorded. And so I have been listening to my own content now for the last few weeks as I've been recording. And that is a consistent message that I give conservative college students: is communication is the key to everything, but communication is listening. So although you feel like you're outnumbered, you're overwhelmed, and you're being shut down, I get it. That's how I feel every day, but we still can't stop listening. And I have reiterated that, I think, in every lesson, every video that I've made. And by the way, it's called Rise Conservative Student App. My new version is out on Apple as of today. Google is still churning their Googleism, and I haven't gotten word from Google that it's live yet. But if you got Apple, go to Apple and get it. It's Rise Conservative Student. And I give them all these great tips on how to get through college on a liberal campus, how to talk to professors, how to listen to each other. And there's also a guided meditation section in there, so they can listen to meditation and a guided prayer. There's a community section, so they can direct message each other and build their own community. Okay, that was a bit of a tangent.
That's
but
okay.
It was on communication. So,
exactly. It was a great segue.
All right. So that's what I was doing on New Year. Is I have been working feverishly to get this newest version finished and out for our students for the new year. That was my goal. So that's all I have to highlight for New Year, was just recording and producing and working on my app. What about you, Lisbeth? What was your New Year like?
Oh, my New Year was playing card games and stuff with my kids, and then watching the movie The Switch on Angel, and it was a phenomenal movie. I highly recommend it.
So is Angel like a channel, or is it an app? I don't watch much TV, so educate me.
It's kind of all of those things. So you can get the app. I have the app on my phone. You can get the app on your smart TVs, or you can watch it online through their link. So we signed up for monthly, which is $20 a month. It's basically the same price as Netflix now if you're doing 2 screens or more through Netflix, because that went up a lot. So you have options for kids, and the movies that you've seen in theaters. Sound of Freedom is on there. The Switch is on there. The TV series, the series Chosen is on there, and that's walking you through the Bible and things like that. They have Tuttle Twins, which I absolutely love. The Tuttle Twins. If you have kids, any age kids, you should have them reading the books and watching the shows because they're just fantastic. They know what they're doing.
Is it a cartoon?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
It's animation. Yep. And I watched the first episode with my son, and he laughed the entire time. And this kid, he's my gamer. It takes a lot to make him laugh. And this show had him going the whole entire time. He thought it was great. So that says something.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is that on any other network, or is it just exclusive to this Angel?
It's its own website.
Oh,
I guess. Yeah, they do. They make the movies. They make Total Twins is its own brand, but they are on their website. They have merchandise. You can buy The Sound of Freedom on DVD from that website.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, they've got all different kinds of shirts, sweatshirts for Sound of Freedom, for The Chosen, I'm sure they will, The Switch. That's just got out of theaters a couple weeks ago. When you sign up, you get 2 free tickets to one of their releases in the theaters. You get 20% off the merchandise and their website. And you actually get, and I thought this was really cool, you get to voice your opinion on their upcoming movies and shows. So they give you a clip every now and then. You'll get on and they prompt you with a clip and they say, would you like to give us your feedback on this? This is a future project we're working on. And you can click no thanks, or you can click yes. And it's a video. The last one I think was like a 24-minute video of what they were working on. And you can click, they give you options. Wow. Would you like to see this? Would you not be likely to watch it, or would you not watch it? You click the option and then you are given a space if you want to make any comments. Like if you clicked no, I wouldn't want to, you can explain why the reason is. And every single person that signs up for this, whether you do the monthly or the yearly plan, everybody has that option when they sign up. I thought that was really cool. Mm-hmm.
Well, what a great way to engage their viewers and building community. If you're a part of it, wow, that's great. What is the Switch about? I know I should know this, but I don't.
Well, the guy is married and he makes all the wrong choices throughout his marriage. And this guy comes into his life and it makes it look like he gets in a car accident. When he comes to after the car accident, this guy is leaning over him and he says, are you okay, man? Let me get you some water or something like that. Well, this is the gentleman that makes the switch. He sends him somewhere else, away from his wife, away from his family, to try to better himself. But the twist is this guy isn't who he says he is. And I'm kind of going to leave it at that so that you can see.
I'm intrigued, though.
It's got twists and turns, and it's got Samwise in it from Lord of the Rings. Anybody that's watched that, you will absolutely love him in this film. The main character, I cannot remember his name. He is fantastic in it. There's actually a guy in it that I used to watch on Instagram who would do these funny videos with his daughter, like different dancing, and then he would like lip sync to 80s and 90s music, just silly stuff. And he has a small part in that movie. Yeah. So it was really cool to watch. Yeah.
Wow.
I wouldn't recommend it for children, but there's nothing super graphic in it. The language is appropriate. It's just, it can be intense at times, but there are so many great things on that app for kids that, in my opinion, it's not going to replace Netflix. So if you are used to Netflix and you are used to the endless amounts of shows that they have on there, this will be an adjustment if you choose to get rid of Netflix to get just this. But the more people that get this app, the more money they're going to have and the more they'll be able to expand. So I highly recommend it.
So is their business model or their philosophy family friendly?
Yes.
Is
very much.
that the kind of, okay.
Yep. Family friendly, Bible based. It's just, and it's done, in my opinion, very eloquently. It's not in your face about it. It's that's really great. I was really impressed just with the movie. We saw Sound of Freedom in theaters, and of course we thought it was wonderful. And then after this movie, I have no regrets paying the monthly fee for this, because it's just going to get bigger, and it's what we need. I think it's part of what we need to get back on track.
Well, that's a heck of a pitch, because I am not a TV or movie watcher, and I'm ready to go sign up right now.
Yeah.
What the heck?
You should. And then we'll come back and we'll do a thing on what you think.
Okay. All right. So then I'd have something to watch while I'm doing my nails.
There you go. And then you'll come back and you'll be like, I didn't get any polish on my nail. It's all over my fingers.
It's about the only time that I have to sit still and watch something. So that might be a choice for me. Yeah.
It'll keep you watching for sure.
I'm so glad. Well, I think that's it for today.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
I don't. Thank you, Nora, for being here. We absolutely appreciated your time. You were fantastic.
Yes. She had a lot of great information. She shared, some biographies that would certainly be great reading. And I am going to look those up. Actually, I'm taking a little sort of vacation in the next couple of weeks, and I think that's a good idea. I might be reading on my vacation. So those are good suggestions. Solzhenitsyn. I can't wait. Yay. A little light reading on a vacation. Solzhenitsyn. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. No. All right. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. It was great being on here with you.
Yes. Thank you, Christine. Have a great weekend.
We'll be
it's
back
almost
next
the weekend
week.
Now. Yes, we will.
I can't believe it. Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good week.